true to what you said on paper.
I wish that I could freely dream and be judged from within, haunted by a power that cannot see past my skin. My views are viewed as ignorant, my truth always denied. My history is shrouded in a spider web of lies. Isn't this America? Or is this America all a lie?
Of the freedom of speech, somewhere I read. Of the freedom of press, somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
How can I pledge allegiance to a country built on lies? Or raise my children to believe they're equal in its eyes? My leaders are assassinated for speaking their mind.
All right, welcome back to the second hour of At the Roundtable with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. My co-host, Dr. Bradley, believe it or not, he is still in the studio, but usually when our guest sponsor comes in, she's usually pretty generous with bringing food. Oh, he's waving his donut at me. So, like I said, Pastor Dr. Bradley is on a lunch break. You know, most people have to work a couple of hours before they get a lunch break, but Dr. Bradley's taking his well-earned lunch break this morning. So, we have in the studio with us. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston, Mass. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. I like that, of course. She always smiles and says, I want to say, let my guests introduce themselves. Good. I know Kurt is on the line. Is that right? We have Kirk with us. All right, we have Kirk there, and Cora Holbrook from Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. You guys can introduce yourself, I guess, our audience.
Good morning. Good morning, Larry. Good morning, Pastor Hobbs. Good morning, Dr. Bradley. Good morning, Angelo. It's so nice to always be here. So we'll be, providing updates on the industry, what's happening right now with all these new developments. Yeah. Thank you for having us again.
Oh, thank you. Without your support, we wouldn't be here. Also, Angelo Numbi from Mass Housing Authority. Mass Housing. Good morning. Welcome back.
Good morning, and thank you. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me back. I'm Angelo Nubi, Senior Relationship Manager with Mass Housing and a lending partner of Guarantee Rate.
All right. And Kirk, are you on the line?
I am here. Can you hear me, Larry?
I can. Kirk, would you mind introducing yourself to our audience there, please?
Oh, my pleasure. My name is Kurt Thompson. I'm the broker-owner of RE/MAX Liberty in Westminster, Massachusetts, 2020 past president of the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, and I currently sit on the extended leadership team for the National Association of Realtors.
All right. Well, thank you for that, folks. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, you want to give our guests a call here at 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685, and we'll get you in live. Folks, since we last met, it's been a while since you guys were in, so I want to thank you all for coming in. A lot has changed. I think a big change for most folks who were looking at home ownership and things of that nature are the interest rates, and they're it's like they energize a bunny. They just keep going and going and going, but in the wrong direction, from historically low rates to. And I tell people when they did, and they wonder why I don't have a shock on my face, because when I bought my first home, my interest rate, and I had good credit, was 10%, and we're not there yet. So these are based on what we've had, seem to be historically high rates, but these are not high compared to what these are probably in line with a normal rate would be, if I'm not mistaken.
I would agree. I mean, when I bought my first property back in 1983, I was a first-time home buyer. My interest rate was 13.5%.
Okay.
So I always, when doing first-time home buyer classes, I say it's all about perspective.
Right.
And really, 7.5%, 6.5% is really not that high.
No, it's not. It really isn't. So, Kurt, with that being said, how is that affecting the housing market out there? I know that's in your wheelhouse. Are people still buying? Because I know that people I talk to, that just half a point makes a difference between them being able to qualify and also what they can afford to pay monthly. Is that impacting the market out there?
Sure. Interest rates will always impact the market. I know, as Cora will indicate earlier, she can give you more of an indication in terms of what she's seeing in terms of applications. Mm-hmm. What I can tell you is, from a historical basis, if you look at interest rates between 1971 and 2022, the average was about 7.75. So even with the rates being pretty high right now, they're still hovering where the average had been for about 50 years. What's really constricting our sales right now is the amount of inventory that's available.
Wow.
So, for example, right now we have 44,500 single-family homes available in Massachusetts,
mm-hmm.
and about 2,300 condos. That compares to 2006, when the market last shifted,
mm-hmm.
and we had about 38,000 to 40,000 single-family homes in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So, to your question, Larry, because interest rates are rising, it is constricting the number of buyers, but we still have more buyers and homes that are available, and that's why you're still seeing upward pressure on pricing.
So to that point, is that still affecting with people? Because are we still seeing above asking price for properties, or is that kind of flatline? Because I'm noticing, like, I have several different realtors that still I'm on their email list, and they're sending me, and I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
where prices are actually gone down on houses. Where I didn't see that for years. It's and I'm starting to see more of a decrease in the price drop because these houses are sitting on the market. Not in this area, in this region. These are outside of the Boston area, where everything across the country was pretty much above asking price or at asking price. Is that still happening in the local market here?
It is, Larry. So statewide, as of July, because that's the most recent data that we have in aggregation, the average single-family price
mm-hmm.
was selling for 101.1% of asking price, down from 102.5
mm-hmm.
at the same time in 2022. And condos were selling for about 100.5%, down from, again, about 102% last year.
Mm-hmm.
So most properties are selling right at asking price or over. Multiple offers are still common,
wow.
but buyers don't have to go as far over as they would have just a year or two ago.
Okay. So, Cora, as Kirk was saying, how is that impacting the people who are actually looking in the market? Are you seeing a decrease in people who are actually applying for mortgages at guaranteed rate in your profession?
Actually, during the last, this summer, we're winding down summer. We're now in September,
mm-hmm.
but during the height of the summer, beginning from late March.
Uh-huh.
I mean March, April. There's a surge of buyers, and May, June, July. During the height of the summer, there's a surge of the buyers because I think they've gotten used to the idea that there's no way rates are going to be what it is.
Mm.
And because since last year, rates have been going up, right? So I think people now have resolved in their minds that rates are what it is. But there is a chance that rates will come down in the future, but prices of homes will continue to go up because of the situation on the inventory. So, but so up to June, July, August, there's a lot of buyers who are still who are buying, but now it's tapering off. I think because they just want to be situated before the school opens,
right?
And a lot of this home buying is affected by where parents want their children to be in school, right? So now I think it's tapering off, but the buyers are still there. So
and there's a domino effect to that. I want to get to Angelo in a second here, because, like, for instance, when my wife and we bought our home, probably before this increase just got crazy at above asking price, because we actually paid less than asking. I think we got in on the bubble, right? And I've seen the increase in what they're telling me my home is worth now almost $500,000 more than what I paid for it in my neighborhood, and I'm like, this can't be real. But the dilemma when we were saying, hey, it might be good to cash in on that, right? But we're up against, if we go and try to find someone else, now we're in that market of people who are paying above, or that competitiveness that we're not going to be able to pocket any of that, I guess is a better way of stating it. We won't be able to benefit from it. It will all probably have to go into whatever else we purchase. So, Angela, how is your organization saying that, being able to help folks who are we're nowhere near and like I said, we're very blessed, and I don't take that for granted, to be in the situation that I'm in. I started early on, but most people don't have a boatload of cash sitting around, don't have access to funds. How are those folks being helped, or if at all, or are they just being squeezed out of the market?
So there have been many adjustments over the last 6 months. Probably the greatest adjustments is that the income levels that are required have gone up, which means now those folks who are have the ability, they've got good jobs, but they were priced up because the income limits were lower. For the most part, across the state, those income limits have increased about 20% above where they were 6 months ago, which means in Suffolk County, for instance, there are families that can earn upwards of $190,000 and still qualify for a mass housing loan. Above and beyond that, there are still resources that are available through mass housing, anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 in down payment assistance. That's still available. And there are many communities, including the city of Boston and communities across the state, that have resources available for down payment assistance. So we understand that the market is changing. It's leveled off to a certain degree, but there are resources apart from some of the grants that come and go. Organizations like Mass Housing, we have resources that are available year-round, regardless of the market, and at every income level. So those folks who are below 80% of area medium income to those folks that are at 135%, and those were the examples of $190,000 and higher.
So if I could for a second go back to that 190,000 you said family. What family? Because if I was a single person, would I qualify for that 190? What's the guidelines for that 190? Where do I have to be?
So for that 190 specifically, you could collectively have two people who say make, they're at two and a quarter. Good jobs, they've saved, they're at 2 1/4. If one person qualifies on his or her own, you can just have that person on the mortgage to note in the deed. And they still qualify for one of our programs. That's
interesting, because most of the time when you look at that, say, okay, this is an opportunity for someone who is making 190,000, but usually it has to be a family of 4, a family of 5. So you're saying that's why I wanted to get some clarification from you that an individual could qualify for that if they were making 190, if they met all the other criteria, or a family, a married couple making 225,000, as long as one of them qualified at the 190 would meet the criteria.
That is
that a change, or is that
it's always been that way. I think a lot of folks when they think of housing finance agencies,
why it's always great having you guys on.
they think that they need 20% down, which is a fallacy.
I always thought that.
We have programs for single families. Now, granted, with the market and the housing prices the way they are, it's a little bit more challenging now. But within our programs, a single family or condominium, including townhomes, you can have 0% down. Now that pushes the mortgage payment up there. If you're buying a multifamily, it's 5% down with 3% of your own funds. So there's still the availability of programs and assistance out there. And there's some programs that are on a cycle that offer grant funds. Those grant funds are gone right now. They do run on cycles. So do the research. Check in with organizations, check in with the lender, guarantee rate, check in with Mass Housing, and we can direct you to some of those resources that are available.
And we're going to get you there, give you their contact number before we let them get away. If you're listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO, the call-in number here is 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. I want to throw this out to you folks. What qualifies someone as a first-time home buyer? And if you guys could clear this up for folks out there as well, is that some folks feel like if they've used that once, they can never use it again. Is that a myth, or is that the truth?
That is a myth. That is a myth. With mass housing and most first-time homebuyer programs, it's a 3-year cycle.
Okay.
So if you owned a home 3 or more years ago, sold that home, have no interest in a home, you are considered a first-time homebuyer with mass housing.
So you cannot be a current occupant of a home.
That
If you're renting or living with your relatives and you now want to buy after 3 years, you're considered again a first-time home buyer.
That is correct.
Okay, so it can't be okay. That's I think where the confusion was if you're in a resident. So Kirk, back to you, sir. You're saying you're still seeing a request for it, but are you seeing that in certain income brackets? Because like in Boston, for instance, the median house price here is close to $700,000. The city of Boston is having a hard time trying to get workforce here, people to come here and live here. It's not like before where you say, okay, it may not be the neighborhood I would desire, but at least I can afford to live there. There's very, very few neighborhoods in Boston now that fall under $700,000, and that's probably something that needs a substantial amount of work. Also, to you, Kirk, on top of that is, and I know it's just, and you don't have to, do you recommend people, if they can, to put down a 20%? I know there's benefits, and I want you to speak to that. Or, someone getting in, putting down the 5%, like, Angelo was saying, that you can get in with that, but you're going to be having a heavier load if you do so. But also, can you explain to our folks, where is there the number that you need so you don't have to qualify for PMI, which is the private mortgage insurance, which is an additional cost that people aren't aware of?
Well, Larry, you got a lot of questions in there.
I know, let you unpack it.
So let me start with the first one, and then I'll take it either to Angelo or to Cora. So the first one is no. I don't recommend a specific down payment requirement. I always allow that conversation to happen where it should, between the consumer and their trusted advisor, their loan or their mortgage officer, because they can look at their total financial picture and understand what program is going to work best for them. Second question is from a getting your offer accepted point of view. That can come into play, and there are different strategies that we can employ to try to get an offer accepted. And sometimes I'll have a client that has more down payment requirement but may still be using a mass housing loan. They may still put down 5% and then take the deposit back off the table at the time of closing if they don't need it for closing costs. Last question is just in terms of cost. So the median single price as of July was about $640,000 for single family and about $569,000 statewide for a condo. In the Boston market, as you mentioned, it's much higher. In my market, which is just west of 495 in the Leominster-Fitchburg area, we have a floor of maybe about 300 to 325, where we can get somebody into a home. Most of our buyers typically are buying in the 4 to 650 range. So there are affordable housing in other parts of the state. And then it's just looking at commuter rail options. I know for some municipal employees they have to be within proximity, but there's a great private-public partnership right now with communities along the commuter rails to change the zoning and allow multifamily housing by right to increase density and to create more housing along those key corridors in and out of Boston for residents that may have been priced out and for our incredibly important workforce housing.
So you somewhat anticipated my next question, because I was going to ask you folks. Now, I noticed like here in Boston, COVID kind of put a little damper on people having to come into in-place workplace. People are working from home more now, so there's more of a demand for space at homes, but also mixed-use residents and commercial. What's the qualification? Because I'm getting more questions from people about that as well. Is that, do these programs, or is it the same amount that you need, Cora, as well, as far as down payment, or I know that the dynamics change when there's commercial involved in it, but if it's also residential, is that a factor with someone trying to qualify for a mortgage out there?
It's different for if it's a mixed use, up to 4 units is fine. Oh, actually, there's only one program that does that, but the residential loans that mass housing is financing is strictly residential. Mixed use becomes a commercial.
Right. So I guess good. No, I was going to say. So I guess if I was going to Angelo and I was buying a a 3-family, a 4-family, and it had a commercial space underneath, would that disqualify me from your program?
From our program,
Okay.
yes, but there are many programs available out there, and Mass Housing also is involved in development, and so there are many of the programs, the projects that Kurt just mentioned across the state that Mass Housing is involved with, and many of these are either their market rate. Some of them are the opportunity for home ownership, and we will finance those.
Okay.
Many of those are condominiums. So there's a mix, but generally speaking, yes, we would not finance that mixed use property.
And Cora, is that something that guaranteed rate would?
If it's a building, a unit in a mixed use building, a unit in a mixed use building, yes.
Okay.
But if somebody's buying a 4-unit and it has a small commercial, FHA would do that. The government loan would do that.
Okay.
But only on a, FHA will do that.
Yeah. Okay. So, Kurt, to posing that somewhat same question to you, because in Boston now, I'm noticing they're being a little bit more flexible and allowing those commercial spaces to be turned into residential. Are you seeing that out there where you are, or is that kind of germane to the Boston area because housing is in such a need, and there's actually more people working from home, so there's not as much need for in-person working spaces as they used to?
So the easy answer is yes. I think that with how we work and how often we come into a physical work environment has changed significantly, and I don't see that going back to 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So commercial space is being impacted right now, and there is softness within the commercial sector. We're seeing those investors come in, either private money or public partnerships, coming in to look at some of those underutilized commercial spaces and convert them to residential use. So we're seeing a lot of commercial factory conversions. We're seeing a lot of mixed use with retail on the first floor, office on the second, then residential maybe on the second, third, fourth floor. I think that we're just at the beginning of that trend, and you're going to see that unfold over the next 10 years as we're creating more inventory and producing more housing in the marketplace.
Okay. So, Cora, I'm coming in. I don't really know much. Treating me like a first-time buyer. I know you recommend people take those first-time home buyer classes. I've gone through them a long time ago myself. I find them very helpful. What would you do to say to someone for preparation? And because we go out there, it's like a car. We want everything with all the bells and whistles, right?
Yep.
What's your recommendation, and all of you can weigh in on this, suggesting someone that so they have realistic expectations of being able to own a home? Because we always go look at what we want, but then it's always what we can't afford. Angelo's laughing because he sees that all the time, and then we get very disappointed because it's like the broker shows us something way out of our price range, and we try to do everything we can to get it, even though we may lose it in 6 months. What would be your recommendation, for folks to get them started on the process and their journey?
Of course, the first thing that they need to understand is their credit.
The credit,
because
okay.
that affects the debt ratio, that affects the what interest rate they're going to get, and what down payment they're going to pay.
And with that, is there an acceptable starting baseline of credit score you probably need to be?
Yes. Well, under conventional loans, they can. It starts at 620, but FHA and Fannie Mae, they go down to 580. But
there's a but. Go ahead.
Yeah, if the reason, as long as there's no new credit that they took in the last 6 months, they can get even with a lower score, and as long as the debt ratio is fine, because like Mass Housing is only up to 45% debt ratio, so which means for every dollar that you make, you can only have a debt of up to 45 cents. Okay. Which is which already includes the payment on the house.
You have to let my wife know that.
No shopping.
No eating.
When they're preparing to buy a home, I always tell them, do not open any new credit card. Do not go shopping. Try to tighten the belt for while you're doing, because we don't want surprises.
Right.
And because that will put them off. A new credit card will certainly put them out of the equation. And but as to the how much they want to, going back to your question to Kurt, as to how much they want to put for down payment, it's actually up according to affordability. They can do as low as 3%. They can do or like Angela said, in mass housing, you don't have to put anything as long as the credit score is good. But it's always the budget. It's always how much they can afford to pay every month. So because if low down payment means higher interest and higher payment every month, and would that be in their budget with the high interest rate right now? Like for example, the average interest rate right now is about 7%, and that's about let's say actually the median price of a home is about 650, single family within
this area.
Yeah, and then a little bit outside of north of Boston or a little bit south of Boston.
Okay.
So let's say with a 5% down payment, that would potentially be around $4,000 to $4,500 a month. So is that going to be affordable to them? If not, then they should postpone and have more down payment.
Right. So to that point, Angelo, and you can pick up on what she was saying, but a follow up to that is that what do you advise people? I know because sometimes we get emotionally attached to a home, and it's probably the largest investment that most people make, and they're not doing a cash purchase. They've got to get some type of financing. What's your recommendation?
My recommendation is excuse me, building a team, doing the research, and taking the first-time homebuyer class. There is nothing more important than educating oneself on the programs that are available, so you know what resources are out there. You understand when someone says, well, what's your credit score? That you really have to, you should, just as everyone knows their social security number, you should know your credit score. That's the first step. Surround yourself with people who are those trusted advisors, but take a first-time homebuyer class. Last year, we participated in 152 classes over 55, let's say last year, I'm sorry, from January 1st through August, over 5,500.
And just quickly, how long does it usually take to go through the class?
Classes range anywhere from 8 hours to 12 hours.
Okay, so it's relatively short period of time.
A short period of time, but it opens up that whole world of resources because you cannot access these resources unless you've gone through that first-time homebuyer class. So take that class, then build your team, your realtor, your agent, your attorney, your loan officer, who's going to take you through those steps. So it's so important to educate yourself first, find out what resources are available, and use those trusted advisors because they will help you leverage those interest rates, leverage those down payments, and prepare you for that next step because it is the biggest. It's the biggest purchase you have, especially now. We used to think $200,000 was a big purchase.
My first home, brand new, was $125,000.
Yeah, and now the average, is $550 statewide in that range. So we've got to prepare these folks. We're getting the younger folks who are starting to understand that they have to look at all options now. So yes, it's very important to build a team.
617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening live at the Roundtable with MAMLEO. I'm your host, Larry. Also in studio with me, Angel Newbie. I'm sorry. I don't know why. Newbie, Cora Holbrook, and Kirk Thompson are here with this real estate financial advice here, folks. I'm telling you, we have the best team. We put together the best team in the business, and I mean that sincerely because this information, as long as I've been doing this, I find it very informative because things change on the fly, and I don't keep up it as well as these folks. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to give them a call. Kirk, I want to pose this to you because a lot of people, they tell them, hey, you need to get pre-approved. And then folks get pre-approved and they think they need to spend with their pre-approval. And sometimes that's a little misleading, right? And I think there are some people out there, realtors, who are not as reputable as you are. And I've met them that I put them in the same category as used car salesmen or car salesmen in general. So that's why it's so important to have someone like yourself representing, because I know you're going to be honest with folks and say, hey, just because you've been pre-approved for $600,000 doesn't mean you have to spend it all. And basically, look, realistically, you're not setting them up for failure, right? To get them into a home that they can't afford. How do you have that conversation with people, like I said, because they become emotionally attached because they're saying, well, Kirk, I got approved for $600,000, and with your heart of hearts, looking at their numbers, they'll be calling you again looking for an apartment in 6 months. Did we lose Kurt?
So,
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No.
I just want to make sure I pulled that out on all the
Sure.
questions. Yeah, so two things to unpack there. The first one is finding a competent advisor to help consult through the transaction. So obviously, from a lending point of view, you've got Cora Holbrook, an amazing loan officer. You've got Angelo. I personally love the Mass program because it's also conventional. FHA, USDA, VA have condition requirements, and a lot of our first-time home buyers are looking at inventory that may have some condition requirements. So Mass Housing is a wonderful first-time home buyer program that really allows for a lot of different product availability with homes that are out there. Second, finding a realtor that's competent. Look for somebody with the Realtor R. There's 64,000 real estate licensees. There's only 25,000 realtors. Realtors subscribe to a code of ethics and have a higher requirement to provide exceptional service to their clients, and then look for professional designations like Council of Residential Specialists or accredited buyer representation, etc. Now, to your question in terms of what they should be spending, it's got to be comfort level based. Obviously, they'll be pre-approved to whatever their maximum is, but they want to look at whatever they can comfortably afford and know that is going to be sustainable to them over a long period of time. The one credit I will give a lot of our lenders right now is they are giving buyers real pre-approvals that are not pie in the sky. They're not what we saw in 2006, and they really are qualifying them to where they are qualified to afford and purchase.
Well, that's good to hear, because I think those conversations, because people feel, oh, well, their commission is tied into whether or not the sale goes through, and then the person is out there, trying to make those monthly payments every month, and it's not as easy as it sounded when you're sitting down.
So correct.
Because as Cora alluded to, a $600,000 home, if you put down, even with the assistance from Angelo, that you're probably still looking at probably a $3,000-$4,000 a month mortgage, and most people, if you just take that chunk out, and then you have to factor in, you might want to have heat and lights along with that, and eat every now and then, right? So I think we get emotionally attached, and that's why I say to folks out there listening, work with people who have a reputation and who you can trust. I trust Cora. That's why I send all my folks that way, because everyone that they've gone to, they're saying, if I have some, I will send them to Kurt. Because I know these are folks who, yes, and I get it. This is their profession. They make a living off of this, but also they care about the people that they're serving. And that's the important thing, because, Kurt and Cora, referrals are a huge part of how you make a living. And you can screw someone once and shame on you. Screw them twice, shame on me environment. So I've had people who I know they're in the business, but I wouldn't send anyone I care to work with them. So again, folks, relationships are the most crucial part, and someone that's going to be honest with you about your situation. Because I know when I went through, I didn't have any advice. I bought my first home. No one told me about all the pitfalls. No one told me about capital gains when I sold, how I could protect what I've worked hard for, that the government didn't help me fix one leaky toilet, but they wanted a big chunk of it.
When you sold, that hand was there.
The hand as well. I'm like, oh, this is how this works. So I had to learn the hard way, in an expensive way. So also, I know we've talked before, you guys were saying that sometimes you can do this with multiple family members. Is that a good idea for people trying to get into this for the first time? Maybe, I know sometimes there's problems would arise from that as well, but is that a good way if you don't have enough cash to put down or to buy a home, to do that with a trusted family member?
Yeah, a lot of families are doing that. They
collaborate.
Yeah, they borrow together, but at some point, these family members are also wanting to go on their own, right? Like, for example, I just recently had 2 daughters and a father who borrowed together to buy a house. And the thing is, the children would love to get to see their parents in their own homes, right? But eventually, there's also a way to get out of it. They can, especially if the rates go down, then of course they can refinance, and then probably that's the opportunity for the children to get out of the mortgage, and then they can buy on their own too. So they'll still be considered Well, no, not in the next 3 years. If they get out of, but even so, they don't have to be a first-time home buyer in order to get a down payment assistance from Angelo. And if they, let's say, in about a year, when rates go down, they refinance, and then the children get out of the mortgage, then they can get on their own. They don't have to be, as long as they don't own a home, they can still qualify for first-time home buyer programs, but not.
Right.
So I was just saying, so Angela, I come to you first of all. I cannot be a homeowner, right?
So we primarily talk about first-time home buyers with our programs. If you do not need down payment assistance, you can utilize a mass housing loan. In fact, we've had owners of homes through the city of Boston who have these were deed restricted properties, affordable homes. They found a home outside of Boston. They wanted to, move outside the city. They found a home that they could afford, and what they did is they put their home up. They had a loan with us. They sold that home, and then they purchased the other home. So it is possible to not be a first-time home buyer and still utilize a mass housing program.
So Angela, explain to our listening audience a little bit more about your programs and one you've alluded to a little bit there on qualifications, right? Are the rates lower with you, and how much assistance percentage-wise on a down payment could I receive? I know there's qualifications, but where are we at in the guidelines there?
So as far as rates are concerned, we have a range, and we allow our lender partners, because we can't actually process the mortgage ourselves. We depend on our educating partners, our lender partners, and also the real estate professionals to be there with us. So our rates vary. You'll find a range anywhere currently from probably about 6% up to 7.5%, and this is based on where our lender partners want to be. Some of them are a little bit more aggressive, some not so much, but there is a range. So we're never going to be the lowest, and that's because we provide down payment assistance,
Right.
and there's a cost to that. But we're going to be in the market, and for those families or individuals who need the resource, then we're available, and they may have to pay a little bit more. We provide many of the resources, our down payment assistance, through our own funding resources, which is why we're not attached to where the market flow is. We still have anywhere from $15,000, even if you're at that higher level of income, that 190. If you're buying in one of the many gateway communities, and there are 29 of those, still up to $50,000. Available, especially where Kurt is. If you're looking at that middle part of the state, out to the western part of the state, where we're looking at that $400,000, that's kind of right in our wheelhouse, where the affordability index, along with our down payment assistance up to $50,000, will help a lot more families. But anywhere from $15,000 up to $50,000, depending on where your income is and where you're buying. We have a program that's available for you. And sometimes our programs don't work. I'll be honest, they don't work. That's where Guaranteed Rate, who has a menu of other products, can place that family or that individual.
So Kurt, to that point there, if you could explain to our audience, because a lot of the folks that are listening to this are probably in that, I've been feeling they've been priced out of being able to buy a home, that even that $500,000 home with the considerable changes in the interest rates, payment wise, if I was buying a home, let's say at that 2.5% rate, let's use a $500,000 example, and I know I'm putting you in the math question here. What would that cost me today monthly compared to at that 2% where I'm at now around this 7%? Anybody who can have their calculator in their head.
It's
I'm going to kick it to Cora on that one before I give you the real estate answer on it.
Yeah, under 500,000, let's say with a 3% or 5% down payment, you're looking at 3,500 to.
That was
close
at
to
that
$4,000.
at the lower rate.
Yeah.
And now that same mortgage would be another $600-700.
Before your 2% you're only paying like I think $2,000 to
$2,000. So now that's $3,500.
Yeah, we're now on the average.
That's got to be a huge disqualifier for a lot of people, Kirk. When at the low end, because as you said, even in your market out there, you said you're still somewhere around 500,000-600,000 or higher.
It can be, Larry, but I think what it really comes down to is talking about managing risk. Because I've also spoken to a lot of tenants over the last couple of years that landlords have had significant increases.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Go ahead, yeah.
So, so it's really about stabilizing your housing payment for the next 30 years so that you can budget and know what that is going to be.
Right.
And most importantly, paying down that principal balance so you're creating multi-generational wealth by that asset being worth something in the future and not having a mortgage attached to it. The challenge with rent is even if it's $2,000 versus $3,500, you're paying that out, and that's 100% interest because there is no equity accumulation.
Right, and you just hit on something that made me really think, because that's another problem people are saying is that I'm paying these absorbent rents. I don't have any savings to save, so I can't save. Like before, you were living in a home paying rent. The rent was reasonable, and if you were being responsible in a sense, you could save up for that down payment. There seems to be very little room left to put any away every month to come up with even a reasonable down payment today.
And I think that's why with the research with families, they can still find these programs that offer down payment assistance. And as I mentioned earlier, some of them are cyclical, and there are programs at the beginning of the year. And I'm going to mention a program that doesn't exist anymore. It was a pilot program, but it will be. It's coming back. And I see myself as a housing advocate. So we work with mortgage companies, we work with credit unions, and we work with banks. There have been some specific programs for people of color. And some people will stand back a little bit and go, what do you mean people of color? Well, there were some programs that were available, and you had to identify as black, period. You had to identify as a person of color, and these programs allowed you up to $50,000.
Oh, wow.
Now, it was a pilot program. There was only $2.5 million. It was for 6 states in New England. The money went very quickly. But these are the types of programs that do come and go. Be prepared, educate yourself, get pre-approved. Most loan officers have a stack of pre-approvals, but get pre-approved, educate yourself, so when these programs come along, you have access to them. And that's one of the things that I think about since I was 15, 16, 17 years old and started to save.
So
you got to have this money. But you got to be prepared. You've got to be prepared. You got to educate yourself. There are resources that are out there, and you have to take advantage of them when they come. So even today, there are resources that are available to assist you in purchasing that first home. You just have to be prepared. Trusted advisors, I believe in what Kurt is saying and what Corey's saying, what you're saying. Prepare yourself. Take advantage of these resources.
Yeah, so because I know time is creeping up on us, so before I just want to start with you while you're there. Your contact information for folks? So
A-Nuby, which is A-N-U-B-Y at masshousing.com. My telephone number is 857-472-9010. And if you need to, check out masshousing.com. My information is also located on masshousing.com.
And Cora?
Cora Holbrook, guaranteed rate in Boston. It's CORA.HOLBROOK at rate.com. And telephone number 508-345-4726.
And Kirk, your information, sir, if you don't mind.
Yes, Kurt Thompson, 978-833-3569, and you can email me at kurt@kurtthompson.com or find me at kurtthompson.com or remaxlibertywestminster.com.
All right. So, Kirk, why have you do as well? Historically, coming into the holiday season has been housing kind of slows. People are back to school. They're kind of settling in. Do you suggest if I'm still looking, would this be a better time to buy? Is it a little bit more advantageous because there isn't as many people, or is it still, as you said, alluded to, just as many people looking down during this season, which generally slowed down? What would be your recommendation if I'm ready to go? Should I wait until there's more inventory? Well, there's very little inventory anyways, but should I wait, or do you think I could get a better deal now when people are not looking as much, I should say?
So great question, Larry. Wait is a very dangerous word right now. And I just have to be honest with you, because we told buyers just wait when rates hit 4.5%, 5%,
Yes.
and that was like 2% ago.
Yeah.
So to give you real advice, Larry, I mean, the reality is, as a buyer, get with a great lender like Cora, look at great programs like Mass Housing, make sure that everything you need is in place, you're ready to go, you've partnered with a wonderful realtor that can advise you through the process, and then remain vigilant. Do not give up on your dream of home ownership, and do not become complacent in, well, I'll just wait for next year. I personally think, Larry, that the moment we're in right now is a great opportunity for buyers for two reasons. One, interest rates might be a little bit high, but they're going to have access to refinance if they come back down, or when they come back down within a year or so. Second, I think that when rates do come back down, it's going to continue to unlock pockets of buyers, and they're going to be under more and more competition, and we're going to see a return to higher multiple offers and over asking price. So this really is a great time for them to stay vigilant, and if they find the right property, to take action and try to execute on it.
So what would you folks recommend to folks who kind of use their homes that do have them or whatever as piggy banks, right? And we know now, like with equity lines, and the interest rate is no longer deductible, but people still continue to tap into this, and then they've had balloon payments, and now it was low, but we're seeing a huge increase in the amount. Any advice for those folks, like I said, who use the house as a piggy bank?
Don't.
The short answer, right?
Yes.
Because they find themselves upside down, even though they may have had an initial low mortgage. Now with these new rates, or just what they owe.
If foreclosure rates, it appears as though foreclosure rates are down. Foreclosure rates are actually being hit a little bit because banks and other entities are able to sell foreclosure properties for actually probably higher than what the market is. But foreclosure rates are rising. You speak to any credit counselors, they'll tell you that things are just waiting in the shadows. Delinquency rates are up.
Okay.
Statewide, delinquency rates are up. So,
and because there was a moratorium, they weren't getting
exactly
right.
Exactly.
But reality is starting, even with evictions, right? We're starting to see more.
And it's okay if you're putting the funds back into your house, you're expanding,
right.
You're adding family members, that type of thing. But I always say, don't use your house as an ATM.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we're seeing that. So, Kurt, you said on your end, is it more, if I'm looking for a home right now and I want to be fruitful as far as funding, are there any areas where you would suggest that I may not like it, but that are a little bit more reasonable and affordable, that people who are trying to buy a home and not sink in debt could look possibly?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to come back to that question in a moment. Larry. I just wanted to dovetail onto what Angela just said. There are people that if they're in rental situations and they're having challenges, to look at some of the programs that are available. The Massachusetts Association of Realtors lobbied for a program that's called WRAP, which allows home renters that may have fallen behind or in arrears on their rental to be able to catch up, and it uses some of the old pandemic funds. I just want to mention that because I know there are some people that are considering home ownership but also may have some damages or blemishes and may be trying to get into a position. So I want them to make sure that they know that there's programs out there for them. In terms of affordable housing, I think that you're looking at the secondary market. So if you're looking right inside 128 or even 495, everything's gotten astronomically expensive. We're seeing a lot of consumers in North Central Mass from the North and South Shore that are coming in. That bastion of affordability usually is along that Worcester 190 corridor, maybe down into New Bedford, maybe out in the Springfield area right now, or potentially even Lawrence and Lowell have blown up pretty substantially.
So I'd
say Central Massachusetts.
So when you say that, what's the median range in that affordability category that you would say, so people have an idea of what? Because when we say affordable now, people think about Boston is saying, $700,000. What would you say would be the median range in one of those areas that you just described?
I would say $400,000 to $500,000.
Okay.
We've got an open house I'm doing at 10 o'clock. Center entry and air, $469,000, and it's in pristine new condition. No issues, no blemishes.
Wow.
So, and I would say properties that have issues, maybe peeling and chipping paint need some update, are going to be somewhere between $275 and $350 in my market.
And these are single family homes?
That's correct, single family.
So geographically, because I've heard of air, but I couldn't get there only by air. What would be a drive from Boston, barring traffic, from someone?
Yeah, so great question, Larry. So I always joke, there's people inside 128, there is stuff between here and California. But I go to Logan usually twice a month, 2-3 times a month to fly. It takes me an hour and 15 minutes from Templeton, Mass, which is the far side of Central Mass, out by Athol, Orange. Yeah. If you're in Leominster, Fitchburg, you're within an hour of Boston without traffic. Maybe an hour and 30 minutes in the traffic flow.
Okay. So, folks, we've got about 4 minutes. I'm telling you, it always flies with you guys. I'm going to give each one of you a minute to actually any closing comments or suggestions, and again, your contact information. I'll start with the lady to my right. Cora.
Well, I just want to add to what the commute, right? Like in Worcester, there are several trains already in Worcester. I have CNAs or nurses that are moving out that way because it takes a shorter time to take the train, and they don't have to drive. Yes. So I'm seeing a lot of people now going to the Worcester area, and then even Fall River now.
And there's an airport out there too.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I think the best way really for you to get situated in preparing yourself to be a homeowner is to get a consultation with a loan officer, because that financially, that's the most important thing that they should be prepared for, is the financial.
And how do they contact you for that?
Yes, and they can call me at 508-345-4726, Cora Holbrook of Guaranteed Rate.
The best in the business. I said guaranteed to exceed your expectations.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I like that line, huh? And Angelo?
And masshousing.com, Angelo Newby, 857-472-9010, newbie at masshousing.com, and thank you again for the invite today.
And any closing remarks?
And just prepare yourself, educate yourself. There are still many resources that are available statewide. Choose the city or town that you'd like to reside, and then start doing your research to determine what resources are available to you.
I know Cora wants to slip something.
I just want to add that Guaranteed Rate is a very big advocate of mass housing. I do a lot of, whenever I can bring them to the mass housing, because mass housing has a lot of advantages really for first-time home buyers.
All right. And Kurt, sir, you saved the best for last.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, no, not at all. But thank you. You've got some great speakers, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Most importantly, buyers, don't lose faith and don't lose hope. Home ownership is critically important. It stabilizes communities, and it really does help to develop multi-generational wealth. 3 quick steps. Get with a great loan officer like Cora. Look at all the programs that are available, like mass housing. 3% down on a $600,000 loan is only about $18,000 versus, roughly the $120,000 you might need at 20% down. And then find a great realtor that you can partner with in confidence that's a member of the National Association of Realtors and is going to take care of you as a consumer to help guide you through that process.
Yeah, and as Kurt said, don't lose hope, but more importantly, don't lose the home. This is why we bring the best in the business to educate myself as well as our listening audience. I know, like I said, this will be broadcast on Monday. Folks who didn't miss it today, and I can tell folks on calling in, they're writing it down. They're taking this in because a lot of times you get distracted. So, again, thank you, Kurt Thompson, Angelo Newby, and Cora Holbrook for gracing the airways of At the Round Table here. It has been so informative. Like I said, we have to start doing a 2-hour show with you guys here. Get you on the ride in, right. And then just have you come in for the other hour. I want to thank you so much for coming in. Like I said, you guys always enlighten our audience and myself in what's going on in the real estate market, because a lot has changed since the last time you got to come, specifically these interest rates. It's scaring people, and I think you guys have calmed a lot of nerves here and saying there is still opportunity out there. Just have to be a little smarter on how we approach it.
I agree.
Folks, you've been listening to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. We're going to take our break, and we'll be back on our last hour. As a matter of fact, Dr. Bradley will be back in. He's off his lunch hour, so he will be back into the studio when we return. We'll be right back.
300 songs in one hit, you'll tell you I'm on it. I got unreleased songs for days, they don't want it. Eat any MC in the game. It ain't a challenge if your music reflects who you are, then you's a coward. I can see through the lies you ain't living what you spitting. If your money's so long, why your dog's in prison? Why your baby mom's stripping, why your mom's still living in that same broken home that you used to sell piffin'? You ain't gotta lie to me to sell me a track. You ain't gotta rock fake jewels or walk around strap. I respect artists getting money, but love them for spitting crack. And the fact that one track can move a family out the trap. It's a dream for us lost souls brought up in the mix. I'm motivated by the artists coming out in my midst. And the artists that paved the way when I didn't exist. Music's a skyscraper, I'm just trying to add a couple bricks.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer. Cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard.
Hustle real hard, hustle real hard. Hustle real hard, hustle
So
real
if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the underdog.